Thanks, Leon. If that was an impromptu speech, I'd like to see a prepared one. I'll be brief with introductions. Next, I'd just like to introduce Dr. Fiona Fraser, who is Australia's current Threatened Species Commissioner, and I'll let her embellish.
Thanks, Bronwyn, for the introduction. Good evening, Minister Bignell. That was a really great speech, by the way. Good evening, guests, and a really great crowd that's here this evening. I know this event has been a fair while in the planning, but from my perspective, the timing is really great because it comes hot off the heels of the Australian government's launch of the new Threatened Species Action Plan. This is a rare print edition. It's mostly online at the moment. I'll talk a bit about that this evening. And this action plan, amongst other important statements, reaffirms Kangaroo Island as a nationally important area for biodiversity conservation. So I'd like to start tonight by acknowledging the traditional owners, the Kaurna people of the country on where we are this evening, and to thank Roslyn and Daniel for a great welcome to country. Also to acknowledge the important spiritual place that Kangaroo Island is for both the Kaurna people but other traditional owner groups, to acknowledge Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander colleagues who might be present in the audience, and to recognise their continuing connection to land, to sea and community. Now, just check if I know how to change these slides. Yes, okay. So Australia's biodiversity is significant. We're formally recognised as one of the world's mega diverse countries, and our biodiversity is also very unique. Our plants and animals, many of them are endemic. That means they're only found in Australia. It underpins our economy, our well-being, our livelihoods and our health. Also fundamental to cultural identity of the First Nations people, and really for many Australians a source of pride and wonder. And I think for many of us here tonight as well, an inspiration in the work that we do to protect and care for our threatened plants and animals. You'll be very familiar that the State of the Environment report was released by Minister Plibersek back in July. And this report pulls no punches when it comes to the Australian environment in a deteriorating state and the need for us to really get in and support our threatened plants and animals. So Australia has one of the highest extinction rates in the world. We have over 100 species which have gone extinct. We have close to, or just over 2,000 plants, animals or ecological communities which are recognised under national environment law as being threatened with extinction. And so the other thing that this report does, though, is point out that there have been advances in biodiversity conservation that we need to build on. The report authors state that immediate action with innovative management and collaboration can turn things around. And this certainly has been the experience in working in threatened species recovery, where we focus our efforts, where we bring to bear science, on-ground action and strong partnerships. We can avert extinctions and we can support the recovery of our threatened species. So an important part of the Australian government's response to this State of the Environment report is to undertake reforms to our national environment law, so the Environment Protection and Biodiversity Conservation Act. But another important plank, and that is to protect species from future actions. But another important plank of this work is the Australian government's new threatened species strategy launched by Federal Environment Minister Tanya Plibersek this time last week. And the purpose of this document is to undertake proactive recovery efforts for many of our threatened plants and animals. So the action plan has bold targets to drive action where it's most needed and can really make a difference. This includes actions such as preventing new extinctions, conserving more than 30% of our land mass, putting on a better trajectory 110 priority species all around the country, and that includes some Kangaroo Island species, including a newly listed species, the Kangaroo Island assassin spider, that cool little critter in the middle down there. Improving the condition of 20 priority places all around the country, including Kangaroo Island, and really focusing on strong participation of First Nations peoples in this work around the country. And this new action plan is important for Kangaroo Island because it reaffirms KI as a place of global and national ecological importance. So within a special country, Kangaroo Island is a very special place. It's Australia's third largest island, as we've heard, but it has more than 900 species of plants, more than 220 species of vertebrate animals, and who knows how many hundreds of invertebrates and fungi, many of which are endemic to the island. It also provides very important habitat for plants and animals which are threatened with multiple threats on the mainland, so acts as a refuge. The island community has a really impressive track record when it comes to seeing through complex conservation projects. So as the Minister has pointed out, they've been successful in eradicating feral deer and feral goats from the island. It's world leading in doing that. It is no mean feat to achieve something like this. Some of you might recognise these two men in the corner down here who I was lucky enough to meet a few years ago and did those hard yards we just heard about in getting the last few deer and goats off the island. Probably as much time getting the last two as getting the first 1,000. And then, yeah, as we've also heard, but the way I would describe it is in sort of a classic seizing opportunity out of adversity moment. The Kangaroo Island community is off the back of the Black Summer bushfires, really close to eradicating feral pigs from the island. And then, of course, feral cats, which is what we're here for tonight. And I cannot speak strongly enough about the importance of this work. The toll that feral cats place on Australian wildlife is truly awful. So they're responsible for the extinction of over 20 species and currently threatened with extinction over 120 animal species around Australia. So it is for these reasons, the high biodiversity values on Kangaroo Island and the tenacity of the community in getting behind these strong projects, that it was a focus of the first threatened species strategy, as Bronwyn's talked about, and that it has been reaffirmed as a focus for the new threatened species strategy. So getting rid of feral cats anywhere is enormously difficult and it's very expensive. They're super smart. They can adapt to any new landscape. They're really elusive. They don't even like having their photo taken. So set up something and they'll avoid it. But the long-term benefits of achieving true eradication in a high biodiverse landscape, such as Kangaroo Island, is worth its effort in spades and will really guarantee recovery of many threatened species and the long-term resilience of those populations. So as we'll hear from James in quite a bit more detail, the feral cat eradication on Kangaroo Island at the moment is focused on the Dudley Peninsula out the end here with a leaky fence across that narrow neck. And even this project is quite ambitious, but it has all the right ingredients for success. And I'll point out just a couple of examples now. So the KI Feral Cat program has always had really strong science partnerships, and this will continue into the future, and which are critical for success in a really complex ecological project such as this one. But they're also using cutting edge technology. So many conservation projects now use remote cameras as a pretty standard tool, but on Kangaroo Island, this is really next level. So for starters, the cat detection cameras are using artificial intelligence to monitor these images. This is actually really new technology, and the crew have embraced this and are really showing the rest of Australia how to pick up and use this technology, and it is a game changer for this project. Other relatively new tech which has been adopted on Kangaroo Island includes John Reed's Felix grooming traps and also the Curiosity cat bait. And while we're calling out Julie Quinn tonight, which Bronwyn's done, I'll take my hat off to Julie in my office, who's been instrumental in the Australian government in having these products commercialised. So Kangaroo Island, again, has been one of the early adopters of this technology in an eradication setting and is really sharing these experiences for the good of other projects around the country. Another really important strength of the KI work is the strong partnerships with the island community. So this is through everything you can think of, through field days, through standard media, social media, really reaching out to individuals. And I remember the deer shooters saying to me it was all about cups of tea and getting those landowners on board. So a real sort of effort to do that, to the point where 99% of the landowners are actually backing this project and behind it. And who wouldn't be? Because as we've heard, you can already see some of the biodiversity outcomes, the agricultural outcomes, and the general wellbeing outcomes from this project being realised. So just to share here an example of this, which is the winter feral cat trapping blitz, which some of you were probably involved in. I shared this on my social media accounts, and you can see the yellow dots here, which is where traps were laid on the Dudley Peninsula, so testament to landholder engagement, just that map alone. The blue is where cats were caught. But there was also just very high engagement, far and wide, and very positive commentary on this from around the world. So Australia is sort of known to be a leader in feral cat conservation, feral cat management, and Kangaroo Island is right at the forefront of this work. So looking ahead, the Australian government has been backing in this work with around $6 million of investment for feral cat control, about half of that on the Dudley Peninsula and the other half on island-wide projects in response to the bushfires for cat control. And this is complemented by many more millions of Australian government investment in complementary biodiversity projects on the island. The New Threatened Species Action Plan, which is the Australian government's focus for the next 10 years, prioritises Kangaroo Island in that mix. And it's a very reasonable proposition that Kangaroo Island will continue to be a focus of Australian government investments going forward, given its status as a priority place. But the Australian government investment alone will not be sufficient for this endeavour. Conserving Australia's precious biodiversity needs collective action across all levels of government, across industry, with researchers, land managers, and the community. And there are already very strong conservation partnerships across the island, but KI Landscapes is seeking to forge new and stronger partnerships to assist with the Dudley eradication, but to go further, to go island-wide into the future. So in closing, Kangaroo Island's biodiversity is amazing and it is nationally important. Eradication of cats on the Dudley Peninsula will bring lasting and dramatic biodiversity and economic outcomes for that part of Kangaroo Island, and will be a critical step of embarking on island-wide eradication, which would be a truly global achievement. Both are enormously ambitious endeavours, but it can be done. So we've seen the good track record Kangaroo Islanders have got in ambitious projects such as this, and we know that our tools and tech in that battle with feral cats are really advancing at a rapid rate. But conservation is everybody's responsibility, and a project such as this will need all hands on deck for it to succeed. Thank you.